Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Conversational Pace. We have today the most popular trail shoe that has never been on the channel, and that is the Hoka Speedgoat. We have the Hoka Speedgoat 6 in today, and we've taken it through the paces. We've run some mountains, and we've got some things to talk about. Finn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And your intro there reminded me, it's like on the single track side of things, when you've been in it long enough, you can start to say, I've always wanted to have you on the show. So glad we could finally make it happen. And that's how I feel
Yeah.
about the Speedgoat today.
Yeah, because like when the Speedgoat 5 was around when we first started reviewing shoes, but it was kind of already midlife. And I feel like all the reviews that had come out with it, like we weren't gonna have anything new to contribute. So then we just kept waiting for Speedgoat 6. And then it wasn't last year, it was this year. So then it was like it's just been a really long time. But yeah, before we get going, two part disclaimer. I'll do the first one.
Sure.
These shoes were provided to us by Hoka and Running Warehouse, but we're under no financial obligation to say whether we like the shoe or not, because we want to keep these reviews authentic, beneficial for you. No one will get to preview or watch this footage before it gets published to YouTube. Part two.
Part two, on the single track podcast side of things, back in 2023, we did have a partnership with Hoka during Western States Week. They were the sponsor of our coverage then. And I actually raced both the Speedgoat 28K and the 50K this weekend. I was gifted entries into the race from Hoka. That said, I was under no obligation to wear these shoes during that race. It just purely by luck, chance happened to coincide with our testing period. But in the spirit of total transparency, just wanted to let you know that like we have had a working history with the company. That said, I have strong feelings, both positive and negative, about this shoe. I'm sure Brett, you do too, and we're not going to withhold those opinions.
Dude, you got to wear the Speedgoat at Speedgoat. Is that I think that's the first time in conversational pace history that either of us got to wear the shoe at like the mecca for which the shoe came to existence.
Totally. And I mean, I've gotten to the point where whenever I see a fellow human being, I first go to their feet and see what they're doing in the
Yep.
shoe department. And I was actually shocked. I was at various points, I was in the middle of the pack, close somewhat to the front of the pack in both races, and I was monitoring what people were wearing. I was actually shocked. There were a lot of Hokas out there, but I was shocked by how few Speedgoats I saw, which shocked me. So, yeah,
Interesting.
not
I
necessarily
was
a one-to-one relationship.
I wonder if were you just looking out for Speedgoat 6? Were you looking at like Speedgoat 5? Because aesthetically Speedgoat 5 looks a little different, but it's pretty
I was
similar
looking for the
looking.
Speedgoat like lineup in general, 1 through 6.
Yeah.
1 would be hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if we're seeing less Speedgoats than we once used to see. I mean, I remember there was a time, I mean, I ran Western States in 2018 in the Hoka Speedgoat 2, and I feel like half the field lined up in the Speedgoat.
Yep.
That was just like it was like either that or the Ultra Lone Peak. Those
Yes.
were your choices. Yeah, be interesting to see. We'll discuss this current Speedgoat 6. I'm gonna throw a graphic up of the shoe stats right now. There it is. Pause your screen, read it. Let's get into the materials of the shoe. This upper is a completely new upper for the Speedgoat line. It's like a plastic woven mesh. I want to like almost kind of in-house matrix type feeling where it's pretty thin. It like got a lot of scratch to it,
It
but
sounded amazing, by the way.
you got that Hoka that upper ASMR. I mean, maybe that's a thing, but it's got no stretch, pretty breathable, very lightweight. It's just one piece. There's a thin toe bumper that is very flexible. There's this interesting kind of stretch fabric over the top of the forefoot, which there's been a handful of Hoka shoes in the past that have had it, and it really does provide the forefoot to open up a little bit more, and you just don't need like such a starchy material over the top. We had kind of complained about that with the normal Chirac with the full matrix over the top of the forefoot. Like
Totally.
this piece like could benefit like normal could benefit from adding a piece like this over the forefoot of
For
some of
sure.
their matrix shoe uppers. But anyways, that leads right into the tongue, which is pretty thin, minimally padded. It is gusseted, but it's a nice thin breathable mesh as that gusset goes down into the midfoot. Moving on to the ankle collar, it's kind of mediumly padded. We have our classic swoopy heel, which has been on the last few speed goats. Heel cup is very rigid. It's like super hard. The one thing that is weird that I guess it's just a design element, like this like weird spongy feeling piece back
Yeah,
here.
what's going on there?
I have no idea. Like it's soft, but it's not like it's not soft on the, it's like it's purely just external like texture. Like they just wrapped the plastic heel cup with something with a little bit of foam. I don't know. It That part doesn't do anything. It's the plastic heel cup underneath that does things.
Purely
Um,
aesthetic choice,
I think purely aesthetic. Pull tab, pull tab. Uh,
which you don't
Get the
really
shoe
need,
on.
by the way.
You don't need it
Also
because it has
kind
the
of
swoopy
gross.
heel, but sure, I appreciate it. I don't know. You could hang it on a hook, like when you win a race. I don't know who's winning races in the Speedgo, but we'll dive into that later. Um, what else? That's really it for the upper. Oh, one thing that I did write down was six eyelet construction, which the previous Speedgoat was six eyelets, but the biggest difference is the bottom eyelet moved up like almost like half, three quarters of an inch, which makes the forefoot quite a bit larger. So we'll talk about how that responds to the fit, but that was an interesting difference. I thought at first that they removed an eyelet, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And then I went and looked at my Speedgo 5s, and it's still 6 of the eyelets, but it just doesn't go down as far as Speedgo 5.
Yeah, and the tongue doesn't cover the last eyelet, that added eyelet, which is, I mean, we can talk about that when we talk about the fit, but I tried
Yeah.
to throw in the extra eyelets on the 28K, and I had a bit of like lace bite chafing, which they need to make a bigger
Oh,
job.
at this very top
Yes.
one here.
Yep.
Okay. I actually didn't touch that one.
Okay.
Which yeah, we'll talk about the fit in a sec. Midsole, all new. They just called it's a new CM insole that's compression molded EVA. It's just the way that they produce it. They start with a big piece and they squeeze it to make this piece compression molded. Hoka's claims are it's lighter, more responsive, and more durable. It definitely is lighter. I mean, this Speedgoat is lighter than the previous one, and I think this might be the lightest Speedgoat that they've ever had, shy of the Evo Speedgoat, which that's like its own family lineage. But that's it for the midsole. There's nothing else in it. Slab of foam, pretty classic Speedgoat. Outsole still is the same 5 millimeter Vibram Mega Grip outsole on the light base. They did change the pattern a little bit. I'll throw like a Speedgoat 5 up right next to this one, but I don't think it really did anything other than they needed to change something with the way the outsole looked. It had been the same exact outsole since like Speedgoat 2. So they were like, we gotta do something here. Um, it's it's the same. This has been one of the best outsoles of all time.
Yeah.
5 millimeter lugs. It's got your I always called it like the cake topper lugs because they're like two tiered where they've got like a step to them. And it's got your favorite micro traction on it. Jury's
Those
still out whether that
those
does
extra
anything.
little beads, what do we call them again?
I don't know, your speed nubs
Micro
or something.
traction lugs or something?
Micro traction. That's our outsole. What kind of running did you get in with this shoe?
92 miles. I did over 45,000 feet of climbing, and I did 2 races, the Speedgoat 28K and the Speedgoat 50K,
Excuse me,
and
did you say 45,000 feet of climbing?
45,000 feet of climbing. Go check
Dude,
the receipt.
that's like Barkley dimensions.
So I'm training for a race later this, or not a race, but
Oh my
a route
god.
later this summer called the Millwood 100, which takes place in the Central Wasatch, and the specs on that are 101 miles and 37,000 feet of climbing. So if you
So
look
you
at my
like
Strava,
over climbed a bit.
overclimbed a little bit, but like if you look at last week,
Yeah.
I think my stat line was like 87 miles, 19 hours time on feet, 32,000 feet of climbing. So that a
Oh
lot
my
of that was speed
goodness.
mileage, but
Dude, you're getting them tree trunk legs with that
oh
kind of
yeah,
vert.
oh yeah, yeah. So put a lot of steep climbing and descending on this shoe, and it was
Did you have a total time on feet number ish? Probably
well
good amount,
every
huh?
it, definitely over 20 hours.
Yeah.
definitely over 20 hours. I don't know the exact time, but, it was a lot.
Dude, that's a solid test. Like, yeah, not 100 miles,
Hey,
but who
that's the
cares?
conversational pace brand. I'm just living up
Oh
to the
my
brand
goodness.
ethos.
Yeah. So I thought my numbers were decent. I got 82 miles, 17 hours, and 15,000 feet of climb. I was like, 15 grand. That's not bad in 82 miles. Gosh, I got absolutely put to shame. I mean, I probably ran a lot more steps. So take
We had
that.
we got yeah, and I did not do as much, I did not get a lot of turnover in this shoe. I didn't even try to go. I mean, you can't, turnover is
No.
a non-factor in the terrain I was in, so, I think we're bringing 2 equally valid,
Okay.
experiences to the
Yeah.
table here.
'Cause I ran most of my miles. So like it was mostly 15,000 feet of climbing while I was like running. Definitely did get in some hiking, but dry, loose, dusty, Ashland single track, full summertime now. So put the breathability of this upper to the test for sure. But also, I really am noticing the cushioning in shoes because the trails are so hard right now. Like it feels like I'm running on concrete at times. So I really notice if a shoe's like beating up my legs. Longest run I did in the shoe was about 3 hours. So not nothing. What do you think of the upper and fit? We were talking offline. This is the first Speedgoat you've ever run in.
Wild, and I think I was always steering clear of the Speedgoat just because I had heard ahead of time that there was just more of like a narrow, lower volume fit in the forefoot, and this was all pre-conversational pace day, so I had to be much more selective about, what I was testing, putting on my feet. But yeah, my wife is a longtime fan and user of the Speedgoat series, so she's got in our back closet, she's got the 3, she's got the 4, she's got the 5. So I actually took out the 5 to compare it to the 6, her 5 to this
Mhm.
6. Couple things about the fit compared to the 5, which I just from my observations, much flimsier, much looser, more flexible upper. There's really no stretch to this upper, much more structured. I think it has really good security, really good foothold. There's this, I mean, maybe you can get it in some B-roll, but there's like an inner cage in here. It's not just the fabric that's securing your foot. There's like some straps in here too. Really good for midfoot kind of
Mm.
security hold reinforcement. Um, yes, there is like a slimmer performance fit at the forefoot going on. I didn't experience like that classic pinch or any like irritation to the pinky or the big toe that I was told I would feel in like the 3, 4, 5. No crunching. I think there is. I'm guessing that they just made the 6 a little bit wider up front, a little bit more generous fit. But if you're looking for like a classic Hoka generous fit, I don't think that this is the model to go with. I was telling you a couple minutes ago. Uh, Tongue is great. The padding is great. I just wish the tongue would come up a little bit higher. Like I did try to use this very last eyelet here during the 28K, and actually like
Mhm.
mid race had to stop, pull it out, and
Oh,
recirculate the laces because the top of the tongue here was not covering like the front of my ankle, and I was getting some pretty bad lace bite. And then both days at Speedgoat, it was pretty hot. 85 degrees at 10,000 feet. So sun bearing down, pretty hot. I don't think that this upper breathes that well. I think it's because of the woven nature, but I was definitely like feeling it in my feet from like a temperature comfort standpoint throughout. But yeah, the lockdown of this upper is awesome. I spent most of my miles hiking up really steep terrain, running fairly quickly, athletically down steep, loose, rocky terrain, and I felt like the hold was awesome. So that was a major win of this shoe for me. And most of my gripes were just small, in my opinion, design flaws that could easily be remedied in like future models.
yeah, I too was pleasantly surprised with the lockdown from the material of this upper. I ran in the Speedgoat 5, and it was like every single time I ran in it and I would tighten it up, the eyelets would get closer and closer together as I would slowly stretch the engineered knit mesh upper, which was
Mm.
super comfortable. But yeah, Hoka's had a history of like swinging back and forth way too much with their shoes. Like Hoka Speedgoat 2 and 3 had some durability issues. People would rip the upper right at the forefoot. So then Speedgoat 4 come out, and they make that thing with just 100% overlay. Midsole is just rock hard. They're like, "We're gonna make it so you can run 5,000 miles in this shoe, and it's indestructible." And they did it. But it, like, didn't breathe. It wasn't soft. So then people complained. They're like, "Hoka Speedgoat 4 upper, it's like upper's all plastic and it's too hard." So then Speedgoat 5 comes out, nice and soft, really soft upper, stretches a little bit, but it's like, man, this is like a very chill, runnable shoe.
Yeah.
People complained the upper's not durable enough, it stretches out too much, the foam packs out. So then what do? They actually fix the upper in a way that I think is great. I think this is one of the best, like, excluding Evo Speedgoat. I think this might be the best upper that has ever been on a Speedgoat. Um, I really like the material. I From a durability standpoint, it seems great. I was worried that lockdown was gonna get worse because the eyelet situation where the forefoot got more opened up was not an issue. Heel hold was great. This heel cup is so rigid,
Yeah.
but they kept it low enough that the plastic part's low enough where, like, it didn't bite my ankle bones at all. So that was awesome. I think this was a great upper. I ran in some pretty hot weather too, and I didn't ever really notice my feet getting hot. Perhaps that was because the rest of me was so hot where, like, I was running in, like, 95 to 100
Yeah.
for, like, most of it. So, like, at that point, I'm just like, don't even care. Um, for that, it seemed fine. But, oh, and from a sizing standpoint, it felt true to
True to
size
size.
as
Yeah.
well. Length was great. Like, whatever size you had in a Speedgo 5 or even a Speedgo 4, just get that for a Speedgo 6 because the sizing has actually been very consistent across, like, all the Speedgo models.
There's probably just one or two more things I should say about my experience with the upper. So, admittedly, I took this shoe almost exclusively through pretty heinous, steep, rocky, loose terrain. 90 miles in, I'm already seeing some, at least in my experience, some durability issues with the upper. So getting some delamination around this toe bumper, some of the stitching on the sidewalls is starting to come loose. I feel like I'm 3 or 4 runs in that same terrain away from this shoe being like non-functional from that standpoint. And so maybe we save it for like the, where would you use this shoe type category. But even though I had a good experience in that terrain in the early miles, I just wonder if the shelf life for this shoe in like high mountain techie terrain is much more short lived than, running on like California carpet. And if we should maybe make a
Yeah.
disclaimer there at the end.
Yeah, yeah, let's definitely circle back to that with some of,
Yeah.
like, the competitor shoes and, like, what was this shoe made
Yeah.
for. Let's talk about the ride and, like, the underfoot feel. My first impression when I put this shoe on, I was like, "Oh, this is a cool Speedgoat, looks fine." Like, stood up, put it on, stood up, and I was like, "It's kinda hard." "Okay, that's fine. It's a new shoe." I went for a run, and I was like, "It's rock hard." "Okay, fine." Not the first run impression I've gotten from previous Speedgoats, even harder than Speedgoat 4, way harder than Speedgoat 5. Okay, fine. Give it a couple runs. 80 miles into this shoe, 17 hours of running, it has not changed one bit. It is still absolutely rock hard, and I do not like it. I love the shape. I love the Speedgoat rocker. I think it is so smooth. I could run in it forever. I ran my first 100 mile in the Speedgoat 2 because of this rocker shape. I don't ever get any blisters, hotspots. It's super stable the way they build up the arch on the medial side. It's
Yes.
given some people blisters because it's pretty built up, but they've always been able to hit it in a way where it's like built up, but not so much so that you're just like dumping your ankle on the lateral side. So like stability wise, it was great. Turnover wise, like the transition from heel to toe, fantastic. The feel of the midsole foam, though, I just thought was awful, especially where this shoe was supposed to shine, and that's like on most trails that, like, you're just running on, and it was just like, "Dude," like, I did that one 3-hour long run I went on, I finished the thing, I thought I had plantar fasciitis at the end because I was like, "Dude, my heels hurt. How are my heels hurting in a Hoka that's 40 millimeters thick at the back, and it feels like 10." So, there's so many things that I loved about this shoe, but the midsole was, like, the absolute deal breaker for me from, a daily training standpoint.
Do you think when you start to think about what constitutes a one quiver shoe, do you think the midsole experience is the most important facet in determining that, or is it the
I think
whole
it's the whole thing,
it's the whole concept?
especially if we're talking about, like, a one quick this is supposed to be,
Supposed to be. Is it still?
I mean, I would struggle to get in my longest runs in this shoe because of how firm it is. Everything else, it's fine. Like, I didn't love it for recovery runs because of how hard it is, but it's, like, it's stable, so I guess that does something. Anything in that, like, 2 hours or below, tolerable. Like, and it's tolerable because I think the fit is really good, but, like, I don't like the underfoot feel. I go over 3 hours and it's like, "Dude, this shoe hurts my feet because it's so hard." So, you can't just have an awesome midsole foam and, like, crappy upper lockdown. I mean, because 'cause we're looking like the normal, like the Tomir 2, that could have been a one shoe quiver type shoe, but, like,
Yeah.
I couldn't and then I thought the midsole outsole was great, but I couldn't lock my foot down at all in that shoe, so then it was, like, deal breaker. Um, what did you think underfoot, especially with some of the running that you did in it?
Everything you said there, I agree with totally. Again, this being my first experience in the Speedgoat, I was not expecting it to be as firm as it was. I thought it would be more forgiving. So yeah, if you want a softer ride, if you're looking for true cushion, and you happen to associate that with traditionally higher stack shoes, I would definitely look elsewhere. Like in the Hoka catalog, I would look at like the Speed Mafat. Um, Also, what you said about stability, I think that the stability of this shoe and the stability of this midsole is a major win. I think you're going to get less compression over time. Like you said, your experience, that the feel of the midsole has not changed for you in 80 miles. It also did not
Mhm.
change for me in 90 miles, 20 hours of running. So I think the durability of this midsole is going to be great. I guess I can talk more about like the experience with the stability components. So, um, yeah, like, you have that, like, moderately pronounced arch. I think again, I had to look up this term. I didn't know what a medial post was, but I now know that that just means that, like, there's a little bit extra firmer foam that's packed on the medial side. Because I was trying
Yeah,
to, like,
you don't see it too often in many shoes, especially not on the trail side.
and maybe there isn't here, maybe it's, like, just a little bit, but,
It's more just volume on the for this.
Okay, volume. Because I found that, like, I do tend to pronate, and I feel like I was pronating less in this shoe. It was much easier to, like, confidently run steep downhill, stay upright. So, like, and that's the name of the game at, like, for example, the Speedgoat races. So it performed amazing from a stability standpoint in steep technical terrain. But yeah, I have to like reiterate kind of what you were saying. If you're looking for like a true forgiving cushioned experience in a high stack shoe, this is not the one. This is like,
Yeah.
there are other shoes in the Hoka lineup that I would turn to for that like ride experience than this. Like this was way more. I mean, were previous iterations of Speedgoat were they much more like a forgiving midsole experience?
Oh, they were so much softer. Like,
Really?
it was almost like a Hoka Clifton with a Vibram outsole.
Wow.
Where it was like, "Oh, I could this is soft, this is kinda bouncy," like, like, I would run Western States in this, like, I would run Leadville in this because it's, like, a lot of running miles, and you still get that stability, but it's soft and cushioned. Like, I took my Speedgoat 2s from the start all the way to Green Gate, and the only reason I switched shoes was because everyone said, like, "Switch shoes after the river because your feet are wet." I should have just thrown them right back on because they still felt so good, but
Yeah.
threw Challenger on, I got blisters. That's a whole different story. That's stupid. But I that was like a pretty new pair of Speedgoats. I continued to train in those pairs in that Western States Speedgoat until they had like 450, 500 miles on them. Like I expect I'll probably get similar durability out of this, except those Speedgoats were so much softer. So it's like, what? Why is Hoka just? Why don't they just go back to the old foam? I mean,
Mm.
I know running shoe brands they don't do that. They never go back to the old thing. They always try and innovate and make new, better things. But I don't think the innovations that went towards this midsole foam were any better. Though, like you said, the biggest plus was that the shoe is very stable on
Very
technical
stable.
terrain. It's probably much more stable on technical terrain than any other previous Speedgoat, which kind of goes into the where did this shoe work best. The Speedgoat was never supposed to be the big mountain, like technical terrain shoe. That was always supposed to be the Mafate.
Yeah.
and now this can handle the techie stuff, perhaps just as good. Okay, what do you think of this for the running that you just did
Yeah.
in the Speedgoat? Would you have preferred that in a Mafate, or do you think this replaced the Mafate in your quiver in regards to, like, big mountain technical running?
I don't know if it replaces the Mafate. I love that shoe, but it's a very competent replacement if and when I wanted to use it. Like I was truly shocked at how well this shoe performed in that technical mountain environment. Literally, the only concern I have about this shoe in that environment is its shelf life. Like
Yeah.
I do now. Like my experience in the shoe at Speedgoat has given me a more nuanced appreciation for like there's shelf lives for shoes that are very condition dependent. Like, what environment are we talking about? Are we talking about getting 300 miles in this upper on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail in Salt Lake? Are we talking about 300 miles, in the Uinta Mountains east of Park City? Like, those are, I now appreciate those are like two different, totally different conversations. And there's so many nuances. And so, yeah, I mean, I've put a lot of miles high mountain in the Mafati. What is it? The Mafati Speed 4.
Mhm.
And like the durability of that shoe in that environment, I know is much more significant than this. So I think I'm
Mhm.
probably still going with the Mafati just from like a long-term durability standpoint, but performance-wise, I was blown away.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Would you race in it? Well, you did race in it.
I
You
did
raced in it
I did for out
for
of duty.
conversational pace out
I
of yeah, out of
out of
duty.
duty.
Much appreciated. Thank you for your service. Um, you're a regular consumer. You bought the shoe. Are you throwing it on race day?
Think I am. I think like under if I have under 50 miles in a Speedgoat 6, I am still wearing it on race day, and I think I'm wearing it in any ultra distance 50K up, um, in the mountains.
Mhm.
Based on what you were talking, 'cause I didn't get a lot of time running on, like, more monotonous terrain. I think I would be concerned about the midsole experience on more runnable terrain and how much that, like, I just might feel, like, beat up by it. So there
Mhm.
it would be terrain dependent, condition dependent, but, like, this came out of nowhere. This came in, like, the ninth hour. This came out of nowhere and shocked me as a very viable high mountain technical running racing shoe. It was awesome.
Yeah. I think that if I were doing that big high mountain technical race, I would probably just pick the Mafate over the Speedgoat, for the reasons of it being softer and as durable and is able to work on the technical terrain. Like, to me, that's worth spending 30 more dollars on, for the shoe. So, and then just because of how firm this is, like, I don't think I would race in the Speed Goat. Like, I can do most of my daily training in this shoe, but I don't particularly enjoy it because of how firm the shoe is. The trails that I run on are just super hard. Want that extra cushion. Maybe if I was running on like bigger mountain, more technical terrain, I would actually enjoy the shoe more. But for where I'm running, I was like, dude, it's too firm. So I don't think this one's making the trip to a start line on my feet.
It's certainly not a one
Yeah.
quiver type shoe for me. I will say that from a racing
No,
standpoint, this is not a one quiver shoe for me.
no, no. Let's talk about the durability and the value. So this shoe's $155. The one Okay, actually, yeah, because you've absolutely blasted your shoes. Um, for me, taking it on, like, just, like, more, like, regular trails, interestingly, I think the spot of the shoe that is going to wear out first between, like, upper midsole, outsole is actually the outsole, which has never happened to me in a Speedgoat, and I
Wow.
couldn't figure out why because it's the same rubber, it's basically the same pattern, but, like, these Speedgoat lugs, they're kind of built in, like, 2 tiers, like a
Yeah.
cake, and on, 17 hours, a lot of these forefoot lugs and a lot of these heel lugs, the top tier is gone already, which in previous speed goats would take like 300 miles for that to happen. And here's my theory for why that's happening. I think it's because the midsole foam is so firm. When my foot hits the ground, the lugs don't get to travel up into the foam at all. You know, a softer midsole with no rock plate, like
Mm,
a Speedgoat 5, when you hit the ground, the lugs are gonna, like, move up into the shoe as it
yeah.
kinda conforms to the trail. This one's just, like, hitting the ground. Lugs are just taking all the force, and I think because of that, they're getting, like, mashed into the ground quite a bit more, so that's actually taking a hit on the durability. I bet these are probably, like, 300-mile lugs with what I've been doing, and I've retired previous speed goats at 500 miles with the lugs still being half height. $155. I'm giving it it's like a C, like, it's average. Like, I think it's okay. What do you think?
Well, I was just gonna say that, first of all, I thought that that theory was brilliant, and I feel like as we start to develop more about various issues, we should start, like, scientifically naming them, like the Ewing theory and chaos theory in science and stuff. Like, we should start having, like, the Hornig contention.
Hornig lug durability law of foam durometer.
Uh, sorry, and what was the question for me? I apologize.
Like, how do you feel about $155 for the speed goat? Granted everything you did to it.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good value. I think,
I like this upper.
I like this upper. I think, yeah, I think it's a good value if I was more balanced in my usage. As long as I'm balanced in my environmental usage of the shoe, I think it's a great value.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
155 in 2024 is incredible.
Okay, so we're gonna dive into some of the competitor shoes, and I'm curious if you think any of these competitor shoes would have held up or done any better in the terrains that you
Yeah,
were running in.
let's play
So
it.
the first one's North Face Alta Mesa 500. I mean, we said it in the Alta Mesa video that it's absolutely like a Speedgoat replica with North Face materials. So it's like, how do you think the Alta Mesa would have done at 80 miles and 45,000 feet of climbing?
I don't think that that shoe had nearly as aggressive traction as this one did, right? Yeah,
No, it was a much more
I think this
mellow
is holding up
upper.
way better.
Yeah, so I bet your Alta Mesa 500 would have been trashed.
Trash. And there was
I
snow
did like
there was snow on the course too. That's another thing. There was a lot of
oh,
snow
yeah.
on the course. So, there was traversing over snowfields and stuff like that, steep, etcetera. Yeah.
So same price, 155.
Yep.
I like how I like the extra cushion, the softer cushion of the Zagama for what I was running in. Or not Zagama, Alta Mesa. Dang, I totally just went to the next shoe. Nike Zagama 2, $180, so we're looking $25 more. What do you think?
I think this is holding up better.
Really?
Yes.
Is
And I want,
see
because I also that, the upper on that Zagama 2 is much more comfort oriented in a setting like
mm,
Speedgoat. I want a more performance oriented upper. I'm willing to make the
yeah.
trade-off for, like, that comfort around the forefoot and stuff.
You might have yoinked some ankles in the mountains in the
Oh, yeah.
Zagama, huh?
I think so.
This is more stable.
Yeah.
For what I'm running in, I'm picking the Zagama because it's just more cushioned, and I'm gonna get as many or more miles out of it than the Speedgoat. And just for that extra comfort, like, I'll pay $25 more.
Yeah.
This was a good one that you threw in there. The budget Genesis, the Solomon Genesis, which I hadn't even thought of because it's such a lower stack shoe, but from a cushioning standpoint, it's similar firmness and it's got more performance oriented upper. It's 150 bucks. I thought that was an interesting comparison, which I would have never compared that to any of the previous speed goats. But this one, you're right.
Yeah.
It actually would.
I threw that one in purely because this midsole experience reminded me a little bit of that midsole experience. I'm still taking this one because I feel like I'm gonna get a more secure fit in this shoe, even though I love the quick laces on the Genesis, and I also think
Mm,
this has a more aggressive tread to it as well.
yeah. And I also didn't love the firm midsole feel of the
I remember
Genesis.
that.
So
Yeah.
checks out. The last one I written down was the Hoka Mafate Speed 4 because all of a sudden now this is like your technical mountain running shoe. Mafate's $30 more, and for the sheer comfort and likely greater durability, I'm gonna pick the Mafate, But if you didn't love the steep rocker of the Mafate and still want Hoka Fit, little firmer though, but $30 cheaper, I think you can finally look at the Speedgoat 6 now.
Dude, I feel like you just brought me down this quiz funnel that made me realize I like this shoe more than I thought I did heading into the review.
That wasn't even the goal. Like my goal is I'm not trying to sell Speedgoats. I mean, I feel like I absolutely blasted this shoe in terms of
No,
how sad I am that this midsole is a piece of plywood.
if I'm a
But
consumer, I'm
okay.
going Mafati all day because of long-term durability, especially if you're playing in the
Mm,
mountains in the summer.
yeah. Yeah, so this one's an interesting one. You wanna make a bet that Speedgoat 7 is full knit upper and like really mushy foam again? Actually, I would love
If
for them to just
history tells us anything.
can they just keep this up? This is a hot take. Can we just keep this upper and just add the Speedgoat 5 midsole back? I liked the Speedgoat 5 midsole. Like, give me the mush. Sure, maybe it'll pack out fully flat at 300 miles, but it's comfortable for all 300 miles. Give me
Right,
that.
right.
Um,
What's the question for the audience?
what is the question for the audience?
Is this still a one quiver shoe?
Yeah, is the Speedgoat still your do-it-all companion shoe for all things trail? Okay, here's another one. Has the has some other competitor shoes caught up to the Speedgoat, and the Speedgoat is no longer just the default go-to, like, high stack trail shoe?
I mean, I
I
feel
think
like
that's a
it's
fair
not
question.
necessarily. Is it even in a company's interest financially to build a shoe that can do a lot of things pretty well? Or do you want to encourage people to have a shoe for a bunch like, for very niche scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, n no, they want you to buy 5 different shoes, but at the same time, what if you have 5 times as many people buying this one shoe, you
Right.
know? 'Cause it's like, everyone you go into a REI and ask for a trail shoe, they're gonna bring you out a Speedgoat and a Cascadia. So I think for that reason, like, it's absolutely good to have that quiver, that one shoe quiver, because there's still so many people out there. Most trail runners are buying 1 shoe. People who watch this channel probably have 12 shoes. But, we appreciate you watching these reviews, and if you do want to try the Hoka Speedgoat 6, feel free to use our link below to try it out, purchase it from our friends at Running Warehouse. Your purchase helps support the channel. It allows Finn to log 30+ thousand foot vert weeks. I can't believe you did like an Everest and a half in this shoe. Thank you for that. Again, I keep thinking we're gonna run out of fun shoes, but we've got some fun shoes coming up, and uh, it's still mountain season.
Still not. What's our next? Can we tease the next one?
It's another Hoka. That's what we're gonna tease with. It's another Hoka, and we'll leave it at that. We'll see everyone in the next conversational pace episode.